Facing a judge for the first time in Boston yesterday.
And the leak revealing disturbing new details on China's effort to spy on the U.S.
Kevin Cork joins us live from Washington. Kevin.
Good morning, guys. We are learning a lot more from that trove of classified documents set to have been posted online by 21-year-old Air National Guardsman Jack Teixeira. That includes a report from the Washington Post I need to tell you about. It suggests that U.S. intel agencies were aware of up to 4 additional Chinese spy balloons going back 2 years, even as questions lingered about the true nature of the one that flew over the continental U.S. in January and February. Now, for his part, Teixeira was arraigned in Boston yesterday. Prosecutors there requesting he be detained pending trial, and they've set a pretrial hearing for next Wednesday. Now, according to an affidavit, the FBI alleges that the Pentagon leaker's Discord friends actually turned him into the feds, even as he frantically searched for the word leak on his government-issued computer leading up to his arrest. The New York Times reports that in a final call to his gamer friends, Teixeira allegedly said he never wanted it to get like this and said, "Guys, it's been good. I love you all." That, according to a member of the online group who goes by the screen name Vaki, who described Teixeira this way, quote, "He was the man, the myth. He was the legend. Everyone respected this guy. He was a Christian, anti-war, just wanted to inform some of his friends about what's going on." Meanwhile, President Biden says his administration is looking for answers following the breach, wondering how someone with this level of access was able to obtain, then distribute such sensitive information online for months undetected. Quote, "I've directed our military and intelligence community to take steps to further secure and limit distribution of sensitive information, and our national security team is closely coordinating with our partners and allies." He then added this last night.
"I've instructed the department to make sure that they get to the root of why he had access in the first place, number one, and number two, to focus extensively on the extent to which it all occurred.
The AG, Merrick Garland, said that Teixeira is going to be charged with removing or transmitting classified national defense information. That's a crime under the 1917 Espionage Act, and it's punishable by years in prison. Still, critics argue the contents of what has been now disclosed needs further examination, especially that which is inconsistent with the government narrative or prior federal disclosures, and that certainly will be something we'll learn a lot more about in the days and weeks ahead, guys.
All right, good stuff. Thank you so much, Kevin.
You bet.
Let's do this. Let's separate this, if we can, into the messenger and the message. First, can we talk about the messenger? Pete, I think, as we all are, very surprised that some Air National Guardsmen would have access to this kind of information. I had Dana Hoffman, a former CIA station chief, Fox News analyst, on my podcast, Will Cain podcast this week, and he didn't rule out, and I don't think anyone should, is there more? Was he connected? Did he have relationships with foreign adversaries? Are you surprised at the breadth of the access you would have as an Air National Guardsman?
A little bit, but it all has to do with the classification, right? So he's got a TSSCI, which is a top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information. But he's only supposed to be able to see the things pertinent to his job. Here's the thing, it sounds like he was an IT guy, which means that, think about it, the IT guy here at Fox could read all of our emails if he or she wanted to, right? Irresponsibly, probably could. Doesn't mean they're supposed to. So it sounds like he had gates to certain portals that you otherwise wouldn't because he was in tech and IT, and then used it irresponsibly to find whatever he wanted. I was flabbergasted when I had that, if I searched what I could find. I didn't really ever. I stuck to what we were doing, but you can find a lot with a certain clearance.
You know, Rachel, I think as well, like, this guy, and we'll get to the message in a minute, though, but he's not a hero. Like, he's not trying to be a leaker. He's not trying to disseminate to the American people the truth. He's trying to impress, by all accounts, but he's trying to impress his buddies on the internet.
Yeah, and I think there could be a lot to this. So it's interesting how I've shifted over the years. Like, I remember when the first big leakers came out, you know, Snowden. I was trying to figure it out, but always felt, I have family and intelligence, so, you know, I always felt like that was a breach of, you know, you're practically you know, it's treasonous, right? You're a traitor if you betray these secrets. Boy, I have a hard time looking at. It's hard to separate the message from the messenger for me, and I'm not sure. I'm not going to say he's a hero, but I don't think he's a bad guy. Especially as he's, telling us things that our government is doing against the will of the people. I have to say, I am not sure how I feel about this.
And now we learn that the Chinese spy balloons,
exactly.
they're not telling us
to it.
Yes.
And can I just say this? A lot of people are saying there's no way that this is just that they didn't know what's happening. A lot of people are putting a lot more, conspiracy theories behind this, which, as you know, a lot of them become spoiler alerts. Could this be a way to push the Restrict Act, to make it more relevant, to make people want this more, or have a better use it that way to push and that would put all of us in jeopardy of government.
I have to separate the messenger from the message, because this guy also, look, he put American lives in jeopardy. Anybody that is out in the field trying to help there's an ability to say, is the machine telling us the truth? And we should talk about that. And that's clearly not the case. We are being lied to. Mm-hmm. But there are also human beings who are out there trying to serve the American interest.
That is,
and he has put their lives in jeopardy.
For sure. You mentioned Snowden. Well, Glenn Greenwald, he was the journalist who broke that Snowden NSA story, was on Jesse's show last night and talked about how the government treats different types of leaks differently. Watch.
Whoever picks up the New York Times, the Washington Post, or has the misfortune of hearing NBC News or CNN knows that corporate journalists every single day report classified information that has been leaked. They go on TV all the time and they say anonymous sources told us X, Y, and Z. And yet none of this kind of uproar ever happens because those are authorized leaks. These are things the CIA or the FBI or the Pentagon want the American people to hear. It's a form of propaganda. What's different here is that this was an unauthorized leak. It reveals that the Biden administration has been lying about the extent of their role in Ukraine and a whole variety of other things about this extremely important war. Whatever your views on that war are, we should want to know about this, but they don't want us to know about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of sick of all the secrets. I'm ready for everything to be. Just tell me what happened with JFK, release those files. Tell us the truth about the war. Don't send our troops in without telling the American people. Don't put us in a war and tell us we're not in a war. I want to know transparency on how much money has actually gone to Ukraine. Where are the weapons? I want it all out. Am I wrong?
We deserve to know those types of things. There are reasons governments keep secrets. We used to have faith in why they were keeping those secrets, but we don't have that faith anymore.
That's exactly what's
And that's the problem. And it all breaks down.
This is the message for me, and this is where you focus now on the message. And when you have a war that has not been voted upon by Congress, that we're told the United States of America is not kinetically involved. We know there are, by the way, American troops in the field, special forces in the field in Ukraine. When we're not told the truth about something as important as American lives and a war, yes, now to the message that this leak has revealed, which we intuitively knew, is we're just not told the truth on much of anything.
Right. Well, you guys are going to do a deep dive, off-the-wall deep dive into the document leaks and see how it compares to past classified leaks, and that's coming up at 8:40 a.m. I can't wait for that.
It's coming up. I better study up. I got 2.5 hours. We'll do it. Well, the last, 5 days, Joe Biden's been doing a family reunion in Ireland. So all this is going down, and Joe Biden is tracing his family tree and talking about some really weird stuff, telling kids not to get COVID if they want to pursue their dreams.
So crazy.
It's been a rambling, a rolling set of nonsense. Anyway, he did answer a question about his future plans as he's delayed announcing whether he'll run again. If you missed it, here's Joe Biden talking about whether he'll run in 24. Watch.
Tell us whether the last few days have changed your calculus on when you'll make an announcement on your plans for 2024.
No. I've already made that calculus. We'll announce it relatively soon. But the trip here just reinforced my sense of optimism about what can be done.
So you've made a decision? You just have to announce it?
I told you, my plan is to run again.
Is Joe Biden and maybe Hunter, because he's along on yet another trip where he's probably going to make money off of, are they the only optimistic people left in America? I mean, I'm just like, it's such a weird statement. Like, there's such a sense of malaise over the country. And he's out in Ireland, as you said, following his family tree and talking about how optimistic he is as Americans are suffering and really scared.
It speaks to how effective they've created a bubble around him.
Yeah.
I mean, the advisors that carefully curate every aspect of his life to make sure he has minimal amounts of slip-ups in the public eye. And there's Hunter. Look at that. He's very proud of his son.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, President Trump, who is definitely running and has declared that he is, was in Indianapolis. And here's what he had to say about Democrats and Joe Biden.
All of us here today have been engaged in an epic struggle against the corrupt forces and communist maniacs, and they're all over the place, that are absolutely trying to destroy our country. They want to take away your guns while throwing open the jailhouse doors and releasing bloodthirsty criminals into your communities. They want to abolish your borders and impoverish your families while spending your money on endless and very, very stupid foreign wars. They want to demonize patriots and persecute Christians while pushing the transgender cult on your children.
That was a real good summary right there.
Yeah.
That was President Trump at the NRA convention in Indianapolis. There will be many issues which have to be debated in the 2024 presidential election, but I would suggest there's not many that should take a back seat to Joe Biden's mental competency.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
It's just like, you're going to do this again, and it's not going to get better, and this is going to lead the free world. Mm-hmm. I can't think of anything more important to be discussed and explored.
Except that we all know that for the last few years, somebody else has been running the show. And so I think the real question is, who is behind the curtain? Who is doing all this?
And that's the person that will, of course, say, yes, Joe, run.
Of course.
Run. We still have the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
And Joe will...
It's the Obama third term. We all kind of know that.
It is amazing, though. I don't know how... Because there will be books written in the future about how they manipulated this. I mean, they're not going to talk about it now, but of course they're behind closed doors.
There'll be a Time magazine piece
what do
that
we
comes
do?
out. Remember that one?
Yeah. What do we do? How do we control his schedule? When's nap time? It's so self-evident, Will, to your point, that it will become, I think, a central feature of the campaign. It has to be.
Meanwhile, you're aware. It's probably hit your radar. Bud Light chose to endorse or to hire Dylan Mulvaney as an influencer for their beer. This, of course, it's interesting. I want to say lit the internet on fire, but it actually spilled over from the internet into, I think, the American culture. Everyone became aware that Dylan Mulvaney, a trans man, trans to woman, was endorsed or became the influencer for Bud Light, and this caused a huge backlash. I believe Bud Light stock shed something like $6 or $7 billion in value. Well, the CEO of Anheuser-Busch put out a statement. He said, "We never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. We are in the business of bringing people together over a beer." The statement was
That's not an apology.
Well, the statement said nothing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many words it was, but it really said nothing.
Well, because they're in a steel trap. This is a woke company. And I've read multiple articles recently
Donald Trump Jr. is now saying, no, they're not. They give to Republicans.
It's long been a woke company. And so ultimately, do they disavow what they did sending cans to, Dylan Mulvaney? They can't do that because that would cross their corporate culture, which is long since. Or do they? So they
no,
haven't.
They would be the subject of a massive backlash.
But would they really amongst
well, you know what,
consumers?
No,
That's
massive in the tempest in a teapot world
Correct.
of social media, but probably more importantly, their employees. You know there is going to be a very vocal segment of their employee base that says, "Whoa, now you're transphobic, Bud Light."
Yep.
And maybe Wall Street. I think that's an undersold part of this. Wall Street, through its ESG, environmental, social, and governance policies, invests in companies that live up to things like the CEI, the Corporate Equality Index, which requires you to market to quote-unquote inclusive demographics. Bud Light's in a tough spot, which they should never have ventured into these waters to begin.
Never.
No, it was a total misunderstanding of their brand, of their customers, but also the irony. So, yeah.
Kid Rock understands his brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Understands.
But the irony is
where
the
people
woman,
are at.
the Harvard graduate woman who came up with this idea of having Dylan Mulvaney do this, as said in earlier interviews, like, look, we need to change this brand because it's too fratty, it's too male, which is interesting because by putting Dylan Mulvaney, they're actually diminishing women. They're erasing women.
Excuse me, who drinks cases of beer? Young men.
Of course.
I mean, like, it's...
Of course, but it's interesting. She's trying to be woke, but at the same time, she's actually hurting her own gender. She's actually hurting women who are now being erased. They're being, disqualified out of all kinds of sporting events. They're being replaced. Women can't even get Sports Illustrated anymore. They're getting replaced by trans men in Sports Illustrated as models. I'm not saying that's the be-all, end-all, but I'm just saying this is troubling for women.
I can't tell you how many of my apolitical friends are like, I'm never drinking Bud Light ever again.
Really?
Yes.
So why do you think Donald Trump Jr. Has come out and said...
Don't know.
He says the company gives 60% of its donations to Republicans.
Maybe. I mean... Love Donald Trump Jr.
I love the boycott. I just don't trust Republicans, conservatives to make it last. We're just not as good at it as
all you got to go from blue can to the silver can. It's not that hard. You're still drinking beer, just moving it over a little bit.
All right.
All right. Turn now to a few additional headlines, starting with this. New court documents revealing Cash App founder Bob Lee was stabbed to death just hours after visiting the suspect's sister. Text messages show Nima Momini confronted Lee about his relationship with his sister, who is married. Prosecutors say he stabbed Lee 3 times with a kitchen knife in his chest and hip outside a luxury building in San Francisco. The suspect's first court appearance was yesterday. He's being held without bail. His arraignment is set for April 25th. Now to a security scare in Japan. Prime Minister Kishida is wished away and a suspect is arrested after a loud explosion at an outdoor campaign event. Watch. He wrestled to the ground after tossing what witnesses describe as a pipe bomb or smoke bomb. No one, thankfully, was hurt. And a private school in upstate New York is still forcing children to wear masks outdoors. The Free Press reporting that the Elizabeth Ann Clune Montessori School is still enforcing harsh COVID masking measures, and parents are outraged. One mother saying, I could tolerate most of the stuff, the teachers in the N95s and face shields while standing behind plexiglass barriers, but I just wanted them to end the outdoor masking.
So listen to this, you guys. I read the article. The students actually have a sign language, a secret sign language, so they can talk during lunch. And, they have all kinds. They still don't sing happy birthday at this because you can't sing because of COVID. This is a cult. And shame on those parents for sending their kids to this school. It's awful. Anyway. All right, still ahead. Could gut health be the key to defeating Alzheimer's? We're going to tell you about a breakthrough study next.
And later, we're counting down to kick off.
9 people above the age of 65 suffering from Alzheimer's disease. Experts project that cases could reach 150 million people worldwide by 2050. But a breakthrough new study discovers that gut health could be linked to the disease, saying, quote, the gut microbiota affects brain health through the secretion of toxins and numerous immune functions. Our next guest was once a consultant for Coke, helping make sure sugar taxes failed. Now he advocates for healthy food incentives. Co-founder of TrueMed, Callie Means, joins us now. Thank you so much, Callie. This is so fascinating. Tell us about this connection between gut health and Alzheimer's.
Here's the headline. Alzheimer's is a food-borne illness.
Wow.
This should be front page news on every paper in America. Right now, we're eating 100 times more sugar than we did 100 years ago. 70% of our diet is ultra-processed food. And increasing research shows this disrupts the highly important bacteria in our gut that regulates a lot of hormones, a lot of important issues. And then other research is also showing Alzheimer's is now called type 3 diabetes. It's so tied to metabolic dysfunction, what we're eating. It's really an extension of diabetes. And I think here's the core point viewers should know. You're being lied to. Alzheimer's is under your control. Other conditions like cancer are increasingly being shown to be metabolic conditions tied to food. That's an empowering message for patients, but it's not a profitable message for pharma, which depends on patients being in the dark and frankly being sick and managing their conditions, not having this empowering information.
Yeah, I think this has all been intuitive for Americans for a long time. I think this is the sleeper issue of the next election, whoever takes this on, whoever takes on big pharma and big food, because it's also diabetes. We see childhood diabetes and no one's doing anything about it. Maybe now that it's old people who vote, we'll start caring more about what's happening to young people who are getting diabetes at ages that are just unprecedented.
Type 2 diabetes was very recently called adult onset diabetes. Yes. We've dropped the adult onset. Today, 25% of teens have prediabetes. This is the most first order important issue facing our country when 50% of teens almost are obese or overweight, when 17% of teens have fatty liver disease, which you would never see in children. This is destroying our human capital. And what this research shows is that our bodies are connected to our brain. Just as we can see the visual effects of this metabolic disaster, 20% of our energy is produced in our brain. And again, yeah, we're being told this is complicated. This is the greatest lie in medicine. The fact that all these things are happening at once, it's tied to very simple things, which is a rigged food system.
It is, and it's actually such an empowering message. We have so much power in our own families, at our own kitchen tables with our own children to make them healthy. But big pharma and big food and ultra-processed foods are killing us, really, literally, and bringing on dementia. This message is fascinating. Thanks for bringing it to the public. And I hope politicians are listening, because there's a lot of us parents out there who want someone to take on these two industries. Thank you so much for joining us today. Fascinating.
Thank you. People are waking up, and I appreciate it.
I think so, too.
The Department of Justice announcing charges against 28 cartel members yesterday, including some of El Chapo's own children, the Chapitos. The charges focus on the Sinaloa cartel for trafficking fentanyl. Some of the cartel's Chinese suppliers are also included. So here to react is senior writer for townhall.com, Julio Rosas. Julio, thanks for being with us this morning. You know, I'd love to talk to you about the significance of these charges, of this effort by the DOJ. On the screen here, I don't know if you can see this, Julio, but those watching at home can. What you see is Mexico and sort of the fiefdoms of the Mexican drug cartels, which over time kind of was broken up into a lot of little fiefdoms and emerges once again with two primary cartels, the Sinaloa cartel, represented in this teal color here, and the new cartel of the last, I'd say, 5 years, and that's Jalisco New Generation in central Mexico here in the lighter blue. These, Julio, these charges focus largely on the Sinaloa cartel. How significant will that be in combating drug trafficking into the U.S.?
I mean, it is pretty significant because we've known for a long time, obviously, that the precursors come from China. They're made, fentanyl pills are made in Mexico and then, of course, trafficked into the U.S. What this investigation is significant is because they're going to lay out exactly how that works, and that's why those individuals are being named. And it's also kind of significant with the timing because it wasn't too long ago when the Mexican president said that fentanyl is not a Mexican problem in the sense that it's not made in Mexico, which of course is obviously not true. The Mexican military and police are finding pretty significant big fentanyl labs in Mexico. And so I think, you know, when you look at all the pills that are being seized at the Nogales port of entry, that's Sinaloa's territory. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly basically how the sausage is made through this investigation and through the trial.
Yeah, background on Sinaloa. It was the organization fronted by El Chapo for many years. There have been rumors and suspicions that not only was the Sinaloa cartel connected to the Mexican government, deeply corrupted by the Sinaloa cartel, but also potentially by United States DEA, in that there's been questions about whether or not deals have been cut to do away with other cartels. And then this is the result. Julio, this is on the screen now. This is the United States of America, and this shows major cities across the U.S. represented by which cartels have the biggest influence. Sinaloa in orange, Jalisco New Generation in yellow. But what you can see is all the way from New York down to Houston, out to L.A., orange dots everywhere you look. This is Sinaloa. So, Julio, as I understand it, Sinaloa not only dominates Mexico and the United States, it dominates the fentanyl trade.
Right. And so when you have a drug like fentanyl, where it's not limited to a growing season, where it's cheap, where it's much easier to traffic into the United States, that's already a problem. But now what we're seeing recently is that it's being cut with animal tranquilizer. And the reason why that is a problem is because not only does it even make it even more powerful, but it also, to my understanding, it negates the effects of Narcan. So now, even if you are able to get that drug to someone who's having an overdose, if it's now being cut at the street level with this animal tranquilizer, you're probably not going to survive an overdose, which is obviously concerning in the fact that we're seeing it spread in cities like Philadelphia and even places like Las Vegas.
Yeah. It shows how deeply this problem exists geographically, institutionally, from Mexico to the United States to China, to your point. Big battle to stop this poisoning of Americans. Julio Rosas, great to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still ahead, the 21-year-old accused Pentagon leaker appearing in court yesterday. A former Navy JAG officer joins us next with the consequences that guardsman could face. Plus, we're counting down to kickoff. Abby Hornacek joins us live.
A Guard member accused of exposing highly classified U.S. intel secrets made his first appearance in a Boston court yesterday.
21-year-old Jack Teixeira faces 2 federal charges after allegedly removing and sharing classified information in a Discord chat room where he went by the username Jack the Dripper.
So what comes next for him and those who received the top secret information? Here to weigh in, former Navy JAG officer Don Brown. Don, welcome. So,
good morning, guys.
What can we expect to happen to this young man?
Well, this young man has been charged with 3 separate counts under the Espionage Act. 2 basically for mishandling national defense information that is classified, and a 3rd for generally mishandling classified information under Section 1924. So there are 2 charges, but 3 counts. Based upon my calculation, having read the indictment last night, it looks like he's facing a maximum of 25 years, 10 years for each of the counts relating to mishandling or disseminating of national defense information, and another 5 years for the general mishandling of classified information under Section 1924. Now, by contrast, I know Pete and I have talked about the Bradley Manning case, or now Chelsea Manning, I suppose, back during the Obama administration. Manning faced 22 counts, and of which he at the time was convicted of 20, and 8 of those were under the Espionage Act. And for that, Manning received 35 years under a military court-martial. This is not a court-martial. This young man has now been arraigned in the United States District Court in Boston because he was an Air National Guardsman and he was arrested during, when he was off duty. So, but he's looking at a maximum of 25 years if no additional charges are added, and we don't know if that'll happen or not, Rachel.
So Don, you kind of answered my next question. Because he's in the National Guard, he's in civilian courts, not the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So the Army or the military is not charging him, the feds are.
That's true. I guess this is Pete talking, yeah. But yes, that's true, Pete. But understand that even Bradley Manning and others, or Christian Saucier, who never should have been charged, the sailor who was given a year, can be charged under the general article under the UCMJ. And so, therefore, in the Manning case, we saw charges under the Espionage Act of 1917. In fact, we have overlapping charges that both of these defendants have faced. So, but it is a civilian court as opposed to a military court for the reason that you've outlined. He was basically not on active duty at the time he was arrested, or apparently committed the offenses that he's alleged to have committed.
Don, I want to ask you very quickly, it strikes me, and I've had conversations with people, that there are maybe thousands of people that share the profile of Jack Teixeira, meaning his security clearance, whatever his abilities may be. It doesn't look, at this point, incredibly sophisticated. And as such, I would think that the government would want to make an example of him. My suspicion would be they'd want to do some deterrence here by throwing the book at him to try to deter anyone else who could have access to the same kind of thing that he did. What's your thought?
Well, Pete and I have both